You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. Under the Puppet is made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who support the show over at patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media. Welcome to Under the Puppet, the show that talks to professional puppeteers about the art and business of puppetry with the sole purpose of helping you up your puppet game. My name is Grandpa Choco, and this is Under the Puppet. Welcome once again to Under the Puppet. This episode, I sit down with puppeteer and voiceover artist Bruce Lanoil. Bruce has been a Muppet performer for years and recently performed with them live at the Hollywood Bowl. He's puppeteered on Dinosaurs, The Wubbulous World of Dr. Seuss, and he performed Mr. Tinkles in the feature film Cats and Dogs. I interview Bruce about puppeteering, voiceover work, and much more. Here is my interview with puppeteer Bruce Lanoil. Bruce Lanoil, welcome to Under the Puppet.
Oh, it's great to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you. Let's start back at the beginning. Do you remember your first exposure to puppetry?
I was a theater major, and I was really good at Frisbee, and I was good at improv. Then we were doing some great, fun stuff. So I saw an ad for Sid and Marty Krofft's Puppet School. It was a hand. Bruce said, it was in the green room. They said, Bruce, you got to see this. A friend of mine. And I called from that phone. At college, and it was this giant audition. I didn't know the puppet world at all. I didn't know how big this was. They were rebooting everything. Now they reboot it again, strangely enough. Yeah. So there it was, and I went in cold. I actually never put a real performance puppet on my hand ever. So I did, and I started improvising some stuff. And out of, it was like 800 or 900 people who really wanted to break in, and also some, the people who've been around. But they chose 16 people to workshop, and I was one of them. And it was just an absolute terrifying, unbelievable, roller coaster ride into this entire world, which changed my life.
Can you talk a little bit about what did you do in those early workshops when it was the 16 people?
Oh my God, it was great. Just the audition itself, they gave me a puppet with no face. So it's like, all right, and Bruce, just pop it on and go. Tony Urbano, he's the man who I owe my career to. He was the drill sergeant, and there's a right way and a wrong way. What puppeteers don't know is it's a military operation to be a puppeteer. It's so physical and so demanding that if you don't set up your space to be creative and understand the physicality of how to get into, not only just a physical flow, but also the mental flow and understanding the puppet that you're working on. If you don't do all the steps and have the background and the discipline, it's so difficult. You have nothing to draw upon when things get tough, because as you know, every time we do a job, it's absolutely different. Every situation is different. Every time you have an interaction, every time you're asked to move just a little bit, it changes absolutely everything. And then, as a puppeteer, you're your own producer and you're your own DP. You hit the light, you find everything. When you have the ball as a puppeteer, which is why people love puppeteering or hate it, it's a control freak job. You have so much responsibility at that moment, and things have to all breeze away, and then you have to be cognizant of who's in the frame, human beings, which is harder, but I think is fantastic, and then other puppets and eye lines, and you can't cheat an eye line. These days they have all these multi-cameras, and it drives you bloody mad because you're crafting what you do to the picture. Yeah. And your eyes are the picture, and in this day and age, they still don't understand that. I mean, even with the reboot of the Muppet movie, it took so long to tell the crew, this is it let us in, because camera doesn't want to show you what they're doing. Camera is an elitist thing. It's like surgeons. They're not going to tell you to grab the scalpel and join them. Right. So it's so important that you know how to do that, and you have the apprentice time to learn all it is about all aspects of puppeteering. And Tony was, you're going to learn it from the ground up, and you're going to listen to me, or you're out. Yeah. And I all through my career, all of the puppet masters in the groups, you had to work yourself up. And I think that's so important with so many crafts, especially the arts, because in order to communicate properly, you just have to know how to use your tool. And your tools are always changing. When you're making a house, a hammer's a hammer. Right. But you're not giving something that's just, has a funny head, and you have to figure out how to do your job in an expedited way. And so it's it's tricky. It's slippery.
Yeah.
You know? So he taught me well, and I put on this puppet with no face, and I just went, okay, well, I'm an evangelist, and I'm asking somebody, please send me your faces. I need something. And so I did this, you know, I went off on this rant, and I had a good time, and I was doing it for myself because I didn't care, because I had nothing at stake. In walks Tony with Oral Roberts. They wanted to do a TV show with him. And Tony looks up, and he turns white because what am I doing? It's Oral, and it was already, you know, a tenuous thing with him, and they really needed the money. This was one of their big reboots. So he watches me a bit, and I guess he just realized, wow, that was really something. And he looked at Oral, and Oral started laughing because he went, yeah, I don't know why. Hopefully it struck him funny. I wasn't blue, thank God, you know, but and it was okay at that moment. So it turns out I did go through the workshop, which I'll tell you about, but my first job was the Oral Roberts show.
Wow.
And I played Jimmy Fudge. And it was a little boy puppet with demonic little black eyes. And they put me in a tree, okay? It was a hollowed out tree, and they gave me a fishing rod, and I sat by this fake pond, and Oral Roberts would come up to the pond like he was in the woods, you know, taking a walk in three-piece suit. I mean, just...
like you do.
Yeah, and he was like, ah! And I go, Mr. Roberts, why did my mom die? And he goes, thanks for asking me, Jimmy. And he go off on like a 20-minute oration.
Yeah.
And I'm in the tree, my first job, and I'm dying. I'm Jimmy Fudge, and I'm dying.
Yeah.
Alan Tremor was my dog, and all the Puppeteers. It was a big cast, but we were the Fudge family. What happened was they got a couple of letters, just a couple, saying that, hey, you know, these puppets are the false idols of God. They're the false images, and this is blasphemy. And because of those letters, we were it was episode 3. We were midway. They came in and said, "Cut. We're canceling the show." Uh-huh. And it was the big break, and it was like, what did we do wrong? It's like nothing. It's just, you know, we're in a world that's maybe a little too tenuous for puppets. So we went over to Greg's house and got stoned and tried to figure it all out. But that was my first entryway into puppets. Going, is this what it's going to be like? And you know what? It's never stopped.
Yeah,
it's been a weird ass ride. It's been unbelievable.
Yeah. When a puppeteer who's just starting out comes up to you and says, "Hey, how do I get my first job?" Like, what advice do you give them? Like, wow. you saw this flyer, which kind of led to that, but what advice do you give them?
Well, I think I started before the internet, you know? I've been puppeteering since black and white television, it seems. So the world has absolutely changed as far as how to break in. But it doesn't really change in the fact you have to find somebody who is looking for puppeteers and training up puppeteers. You know, Sesame Street has had workshops for years, and I know some friends teach. So, you know, pointing them toward training, pointing them toward getting up on camera, pointing them, you have to do, you know, if you want to do voiceovers, you got to have, you know, microphone time. If you want to be an actor, you've got to get on camera. You have to understand the camera. You have to understand the ways of doing things. And especially with monitors, I mean, if you don't have the right setup, that's why I think we rush a lot of puppeteers. And really good, talented people, you know, but multitasking with puppets, I loved it because it was so physical. That's what got me into it, because I'm a sports guy. And, you have to do 1,000 things, and you have to trust your body with muscle memory. You got to set that up, because you have to draw upon things that you know your body can handle as you're do-si-doing, and then having to ad-lib, and then, you know, make a right turn as you're making a left turn, because that's the way the scene goes. And then when you're in a crowd of puppets, I mean, how do you negotiate and see? And you have to be strong about it, but you also have to be sensitive. And then if you're just a part of the puppet, you still have to see, but you have to be even more stealthy, and you have to be even more molding, which makes your body contortion to just get enough sight of what you're doing in order to make it flow with the picture, because the picture is everything. And it's like painting that picture. If you put some paint on your paintbrush, you can't turn away and cough and then just hope that you hit, you know, the point that you put that paint on for that purpose. I'm saying a lot of P's, which I hope is not.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, but it's so important that those moments where you can see, and you see a puppet seeing and hearing, where you feel that they actually are connecting. That's what I found, is those little moments. It's not the big, broad moments. You know, people think puppeteering is cartoons. and you have to be big because sometimes the characters look so grotesque. But when it's more grotesque or bigger, breathing and the little things you do are so crucial. And that's about acting. And so learning acting beats. Go to acting school. Understand what it is to have a pause and still be fully involved emotionally with the character. And connecting emotionally with the character. And then connecting with the puppet itself. Because puppeteering is energy transfer. And whatever you have going on usually is enhanced, and you're gonna. It's like a truth serum. You put on a puppet, and it's really hard to lie in a puppet. And if you are, you're not really doing it. You're just not. You're playing at it, And I am in search, and I've always been in search of the truth, because it's what makes me laugh. What makes me get up in the morning. If I'm not genuine anymore, and I'm not doing things that are trying. The edging thing about puppet is the emotional things that puppets can say. That's throughout history that people can't, and that's why they're so powerful. And that's why they usually, for me, are the smartest people in the room are the puppets. And they may play buffoons and clowns, but like Shakespeare writes, the clowns sometimes are, they're the mirror of what's really going on in the truth. That's why the comedians today are so important. Yeah. We get our news from comedians. And it's all skewed wrong, but that's our default, is we have to find truth somewhere, because everything can now be false news. Yeah, everything can now be manufactured. Truth can be manufactured by saying something false 10 times. Mm-hmm. Beetlejuice, 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 and suddenly, okay, well, I guess it's true. And we have opinions of things that we shouldn't, because we're just not listening, and we're not connecting anymore. So the magic of social media, and the magic of things going out way too fast before we can actually think before we talk, is dangerous. And it's dangerous for artists, to think that, it's going to happen really fast for me. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have a point of view, and if you don't know who you are before you're going in, and understand the craft of what you're going into, you're going to find yourself hitting walls and not understanding why you're not getting better, or why you're not involved more, And it's a slippery slope to go too fast. So, right. Finding workshops and apprentices and doing things on your own, and finding your own voice to start, because then you're going to be forced to tell other people's words and be other people's characters. But how do you find the core of that? You have to draw upon something, and you have to draw upon the training that you are that is offered, or you have to find people who can help you connect to who you are in order for you to put on the megaphone of the puppet and then broadcast to the world what it is you're trying to say. So
yeah, no, that is absolutely fantastic. It's funny, just when you're talking, it's like, I've been very fortunate enough to work on a lot of really cool things, but I often feel like, well, why am I not in that position?
I go crazy.
I've agonized. It's like, I haven't had the training, I'm still learning. I've been lucky to be involved,
still learning.
But I'm still
exactly,
learning.
I mean, I right-handed for Frank Oz. I mean, I did things that other people will never do. I mean, it was a Muppets Tonight. It was a giant asparagus monster, and I was his arm. And Frank didn't really care if I was his arm or not. Frank played the character, and he flung me around the set. I had to jump on. I had to do like stunts because I was going to get hurt. It was Dinosaurs. I was doing Charlene, and it was the 16-day pilot that almost destroyed the series. It was like a nightmare because we were doing things that nobody should be doing. Those rubber suits. It was incredible, but we, and then the young actress I was working with, we found out she was claustrophobic. So when she put the head on, whatever magic she had, she was starting to scream, and I had to take my headphones off because it was panicking. And Brian came up and said, "Get this right, or I'm gonna let you go." It's like, oh my God, how do I save this? I didn't realize the art form of that suit work was so crucial to. Well, it was everything. And then once Mr. Linsisti got into Charlene, and he was of course Ninja Turtle, and the mastery of that, Beretta and Leif Tilden, the guys who were so genius at working blind, you're riding this other actor, the collaboration, the trust that you have to have, and then the teamwork, and then hopefully the chemistry, all of that was I was thrown into in that world. It's not just you. Yeah. You may have the ball, but everybody, from the puppet builder, everybody needs to be on their game for you to do your job. And you could do your job even fantastically, and it wouldn't matter because it doesn't jive, it doesn't work. It's such a tenuous art form, it's madness if you think you have control, but you don't have control, and then you agonize why you're not doing more, like you said, and it's you have to calm yourself every time you go into a situation like this because it's so hard.
Yeah.
It looks so easy. Everybody thinks they can just puppeteer. Everybody thinks they can do a cartoon voice.
Yeah.
There's nothing behind that. There's tons of things behind it, but you don't show it to the people.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue because my next question is, a key ingredient to a good puppet character is the voice.
Yeah.
And, you do a lot of voiceover work, not just for, you do puppetry, but you do a lot of voiceover work just outside of puppetry. Did you take classes to develop that? We talk about training, to develop your voiceover chops, or was that something you just kind of developed on your own?
Everybody, imitates their relatives and does funny voices and stuff and then thinks, I got this. And that's a great way. Bill Beretta taught me that, his greatest characters when they had that development of new characters at one point, and then Bill brought Pepe and all these wonderful characters based on his relatives, based on real people, and so he had plenty to draw upon because his truth was never been heard before. And people don't understand when you do your best to do, a celebrity's voice, you're going to do your version of it.
Right.
And so it's going to be unique anyway. And you can't beat yourself up for not being a perfect mimic. There are jobs where you do voice matching, and I did Timon for Disney, and I didn't even know I can actually do it. Somebody else heard it better than I, and I beat myself up for not getting it right. Because when you hear yourself, you're not really hearing yourself properly.
Right.
And then when you hear yourself back, you think, I'm an idiot. That's not what I did. This is horrible. I don't ever want to do this again, and you're going to actually pay me for this? Are you crazy? and you can go crazy because getting an ear for yourself is something you have to practice. So I did take classes with Harvey Kalmanson. He taught me a heck of a lot about hearing your voice. You need to hear yourself back. You need to hear yourself close. You need to hear yourself intimate. You need to hear yourself loud. Voice lessons, singing is so crucial. I've sang a lot. I'm not a singer really. I really am not, but I'm a character singer. But right. I've done a lot of musical stuff. The Cat and Hat. I sang a song every show, and it's like I had no right to be doing that, but yet I find myself bringing that energy, bringing that truth, and It's hearing myself again and again and again, and then hopefully the technical stuff, you have people who will help you with that. But, flying off the cliff and not worrying so much about, all the little things is really important. Making a whole load of mistakes is so important to the process. And knowing that you're going to fail, and knowing sometimes they're going to have to let you go because you're not ready, but you thought you were. Puppeteering is something where you say yes, and then you have to find out how to learn it by watching people who do it really well and finding out places and characters where you can ply your trade. Don't worry about getting paid early on because it's so important to just crash and burn. Crashing and burning is not allowed anymore. And of course on the internet, all your mistakes are there, and so you feel like I can't make a mistake because everybody's watching, But that's the human condition. That's the only thing that makes you connective and better. Is you understand places not to go, and then perhaps you revisit it and realize, I wasn't ready for that place, but now I am.
Yeah,
it's a really emotional, difficult journey as an artist in today's world because there's so many people who are artists and so many people who have voices, and some are so loud they're drowning out some of the more delicate, not important. Everybody's important, but just we pave over things so much. I mean, I've done so many projects where my voice has been paved over, and people would say to me, the directors would say, you're the character for me, and you go, thank you, and it's an ego thing, but it's just a matter of, you're working it together, and you're finding the truth of the words or whatever it is the project you're working on. So it just takes a lot of digging and a lot of dirt, and everybody gets dirty, and being allowed to be a part of that process is crucial. Get involved with people who have other visions, and then you take their vision somewhere else. It's just Bucket Brigade and making sure you're a part of somebody else's thing. So when you have something to say, you know who to call upon. You have teams of people that you trust, and you have people who just understand you, and you could feel comfortable enough to really dig deeper into yourself. That your individuality that really is important for puppets, especially because you're wearing a costume, you're wearing a veneer, you're wearing a suit on your hand, but your hand is so expressive, but you have to let your hand breathe. And it's so important to find out how to do that.
Yeah,
it's a weird process. It's sort of a lifetime process if you want to embark on it. It's not to be done lightly, I think. If you dabble at puppets, then you're dabbling. You can't just always dabble. As an artist, you got to dig in and go, this is hard. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I wanted. I want to be a star. I want to be heard. I want money. I want I want it all, and I want it now because now I'm ready. Just because you're at your train station waiting for your train doesn't mean your train's coming.
Yeah,
everybody's train is you don't know whose train you're on.
Right.
But hopping trains is where you find your way, and it's something you find yourself so far. Well, you find yourself where you are. My career is almost like a series of just timeless moments, some good, some bad, and I have to let go of the bad ones to keep making new ones and realizing that's not based on my reality right now. I have a pool of expression, I have a pool of skills, but yet this is anew again. I have to just say I can't get full of myself. I can't bring any of my ego into anything I do anymore, even if I know people and I think, oh, I'm 5 steps ahead. These are my friends. My friends have different agendas and they have different masters, and the world's different, and the world should be heard too. And all of a sudden I'm 57 and there's a shitload of people behind me, and there's 18-year-olds on the set of the thing we just did, and they're good and they're hungry, and they have aspirations too, and it's like, wow. And now it's more important for me to say, I want to help you, go to your next step. If I have any connectivity, I'm more than happy to give. Whereas before I was protective.
Right.
It's like, it's not Game of Thrones puppets, but we act like it. And we all, it's like, we all have our swords and we all have, I'm going to take you down. It's like, and if I'm doing a right hand, I see the head. If I don't think anybody who's a part of a character should ever aspire to try to get the king. The king is not the head. Having the mouth was really important to me, and being on top of the pyramid. But then I've realized that I've worked more with becoming a better assistant.
Yeah,
and that's making me a more compassionate and better performer, and also enjoying the fact that when I do get to speak, it's a treat, and it's fantastic. But it doesn't mean that I'm not creative if I'm not speaking.
Yeah,
that's really key to new puppeteers, thinking, oh, I have to do it all. And if you're doing it all just mediocre, you're never going to stand out. You're never going to show who truly you are. Because if you don't understand the subtleties of the arm movements and just not doing less, Frank would grab my arm and just pull it down, like I was in Fozzie and stuff, to teach me, shut up. Stop talking with my hand.
Yeah.
I'm talking.
Yeah.
Or not even he's talking, Fozzie's talking.
Right.
Just calm down. Breathe with the moment. Sorry, I keep me in front.
Yeah.
And same way with Jerry, just learning those subtleties and watching how they could be subtle and then they could be bigger than life.
Yeah.
So I had this chance to be with the masters, because I came in right after Jim passed away. And it's never-ending learning.
Yeah.
Never-ending. And I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard and so delicate. And then it's just so much energy, and then you have to wait and wait and wait, as you do as an actor, for your chance. How do you keep your energy fresh, and how do you keep the bit fresh? And all these things you have to learn, because you could burn out, and then no matter how good you are, what's on camera is it's too late, it's too early. Oh, baby, it's
or people don't want to work with you because you're a pain in the ass.
Oh, because it's about you. You make it about you, and you take the space, and you have to be quiet on sets, and you have to play. Puppets have to play. Muppets are all great about making a bubble to just it looks like chaos, it looks like children, and annoys people on set. What's wrong, But if you get the crew and you start, because puppets are a live TV show. It's live. It's not live TV. It's a live medium. And so if the puppets are connecting with the people who are in the room, and you're doing the show for them, then you're doing the show properly. You have an audience. That's use the people around you to see if you are working, if it's working properly. Puppets can't work in a vacuum. They need an audience. They need feedback immediately. That's why the Bowl show worked with the Muppets. I mean, even people all the way up there, they're watching the TVs and they felt it because we're playing to them. We're playing right to you. Most likely, we're looking at you.
Yeah.
And it's wow. and that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
As an actor, it's a hard thing to do. But with a puppet, you need to nail it, and you need to connect. And if you're not connecting, you're working in a void. It's impossible. It's impossible to really feel like the energy flow is connecting. You have to connect with something, and human beings have to be a part of it. They have to be there physically to bounce off of.
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned the Muppets. You've done a lot of work with the Muppets over the years, and you talked about working with Frank and Jerry and stuff. When you are called upon to work with the Muppets, is it mostly assisting? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got kind of miffed. It's funny because like Dave Goelz, I'm lucky to be called a friend to, and he's my friend, and he's one of the most magnificent artists ever. But he would introduce. He'd go, "Hi, this is Bruce, and this is a puppet performer who works with us. Who works with us. He's an assistant to the Muppets. The Muppets are who they are. Mm-hmm. They're a core of characters and a core of a group, 6 or 7 guys. And I went, well, I'm a Muppeteer. And I said, wait a minute, no, I am a Muppeteer. I work with the Muppets, and I can call myself a Muppeteer because I'm part of the pool of energy. But the truth be told is what an honor to be an assistant to the Muppets. I mean, who wouldn't line up, for miles to be around that? Just being Bunsen's fingers and doing something with Dave that's so intricate and so important to that moment that he's trying to create. And there's a right and a wrong. It's not just you're just showing up and filling the hand or just making sure. It's much more than that. You are intricately involved. You're a specialist, and the subtleties of that work are so hard, and you make so many mistakes, and you just want to please the character and please the person who's doing the puppet. And by doing that, you know that when you're doing something, you realize how important it is that everybody's symbiotically on board, with that moment. And it's crucial to making that character what it is that the people love. They're so alive. I mean, I've gotten to be around Kermit. I mean, so much. And Kermit would talk to me. And Kermit was my friend because I saw him so many times. And I've gotten to do his hands at certain points in my life. One of the greatest moments of my life was the finale of the Muppet movie, the reboot. It was we were in the middle of Hollywood Boulevard. I'm on my back on a rollie. And you know how the crowds, it was the finale, and then they're all the male Dan, they're all coming at you. It was 3 a.m. I'm Kermit's hands. I'm the first person coming toward camera on my back flat, backwards, doing the hands rolling down the boulevard.
Yeah.
And I said, God, I don't know what I did to deserve this, but thank you. It was, my whole body was electrified. I mean, I got to do something that you can't even describe to people. I'm saying it, but I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the exact moment of how important and how crazy and how wonderful that was to be a part of something that was so much bigger than myself.
Yeah.
Just to get the choreography of the hands right.
Yeah.
And in that moment, you only have so many shots at it. I love that. That's like sports to me. If I was bigger and taller and stronger, I would love to have been, in Super Bowls and World Series and stuff. I had the coordination, but I was just a small fat Jewish kid. Really hard to you get in the NFL or the NBA. But what I found was I could work with superstars and be with superstars and be in moments that are unsung.
Right.
Because you're hiding for a living. But yet you're so out there when the moment is yours, and you get that seminal moment of like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm here.
Yeah. Well, I love that analogy of like that shot is like the Super Bowl.
It's
like everybody gets a ring. We did it.
Yeah, and you can claim you were there, and they go, yeah, right. Yeah, sit down, Grandpa. It's like, well, okay, whatever. Yeah. But I've traveled with people who we've had those moments and friends that bind you forever. And I guess it's like, making a movie is it is like it's like a military operation. You're coming into places and locations, you're doing impossible things, and you got to get out alive. And it's really hard, and it's really physical, and it can be really dangerous. It's really interesting. So you have to be aware and on your game, and you got to be watching out for everybody else and yourself, and knowing that when you have that moment in that ball, this has cost so much money. The seconds that are ticking away, it's just thousands of dollars. Yeah. And you have to let that go, and you have to be there in a playful way and do the magic, because that's all it's about. Capturing just something that looks effortless, that took so much effort and so many years of selling that show and all of those things. And, people's it's just so vast. And, it's like the astronauts, NASA and all of that was fascinating, because those guys, they were just the tip of so many people who had to do their jobs right.
Yeah.
And we saw, with an O-ring and the tragedy, and it doesn't take much for things to go awry. And creatively, it's so important that you do your job really well, and understand you are a part of just a part, even if you're the star. I had to learn that the hard way in a lot of ways too. It wasn't about me, keeping focus of that. Then you're connected to something that is historical. It's been going on for years. Puppeteering has been going on since man could sit by a fire and tell the story of the hunt. And then somebody put on the skin, or they picked up the skull, and so suddenly, this is, and your children get it. Yeah. They go, I can't wait to go on that hunt, Yeah. It's dangerous, but, exciting, Yeah. To see that creature that my dad just did the voice for, and up live, up close,
Yeah. I was reading a little bit about your work on the feature film Monkey Bone.
And what an experience!
But I think it's interesting to talk about, just because it was puppetry, but it's puppetry that maybe you did not see, you didn't see in the final thing. So could you talk a little bit about what you did on that film? Because I do think it's really interesting.
It's another segment of puppeteering that people can pursue. There's this animation with humans and characters that live in the world together. They're doing that more and more and mashing things up, So you have to do characters that represent the character. They did this with Looney Tune too. I was Daffy and Bugs, and then with Monkey Bone, he had to be on the set. And Brendan Fraser, God bless Brendan Fraser. I've worked with him a number of times, and we're like brothers, and I'm always playing the character who annoys the hell out of him. I'm touching him in his face, and I'm always in a backpack, and I'm always busting out and making his life crazy. But he has the incredible talent of making you believe that he sees what you're seeing on the screen, in the final product. But I have to bring usually the size and how the physical world these characters move. Dave Barkley, a great friend and a collaborator, and God, he's taught me so much. He's a genius. He did Roger Rabbit, and everything was in camera back then. Now technology is such that you don't have to do so much, but still for these movies, you had to physically, move things about and bring the character to life, and the energy and the timing. And that you're not going to be the finished product. There's going to be a star. There's going to be somebody playing leads. I've been so lucky to play so many leads in movies, and nobody will ever know that I did.
Yeah,
but you're for the people, for the actors, for everybody, for the reference, for the animation later. You're there. You're the person. And if you're not doing and bringing that kind of timing, it's really hard to make comedy in a vacuum. You think you're going to fix something in post all the time, but comic timing is not something you can create by sitting by a computer. There has to be there's mistake energy. There's just somebody tripping and falling is not something you could just generate.
Right.
It's truthful, and then you laugh at it because you can't help yourself. So that kind of interaction, and that kind of comedy, and then fleshing out something like that with something that's going to be put in later, it's something puppeteers can do. And that's something that I did with Monkey Bone, and I came out of nowhere, and Henry Selick said, "Who are you?" And after the reading, it's like, well, he goes, I said, I've been here. People don't know about me.
Yeah.
So I got to do a slew of movies where I was, bringing the energy of some iconic characters and some crazy characters. And there's nothing more freeing than, well, what else you got? What else you got? And so you're going, oh my God, I it's like you caught the ball and you have the open end run. It's like it's you in the end zone. So run,
yeah,
run, Forrest, run. It was just like I couldn't believe it. So I got to do so many things and figure out things to bring energy to a film and a character that help them later on. And there's nothing more satisfying than that.
Yeah.
I love that kind of work. I love, letting an actor have something to play off of, and the gratefulness of that. And then, when the DP looks at you or the director goes, thank you. And you go, yes, you saved something. You did something that made all the difference.
Yeah.
I was doing Dr. Dolittle, and our animatronics trying to match animals is so difficult, and it was we were really struggling. They realized they're going to have to do the very expensive CG because it was the time with the bridge time where puppets were good, but they were not what CG can do. But CG was so expensive, but then they realized they have to make this better or whatever the iteration was or the politics. But I was just doing this guinea pig and with Eddie Murphy, and Eddie Murphy, he was, I don't know, he was kind of not really focused as much, especially when the puppets came on, because they weren't, so you can see it, and they were going, oh boy. So I had to do Chris Rock's voice, and I had to do they strapped my puppet to the car, and I was in a driving rig, and I was leaning into the road, looking right at Eddie. And it was me just kind of, with the controllers looking at his eyes, and I had to start riffing in Chris Rock's voice, and then we were just going to drive around the neighborhood and do this in dialogue where he was in the car and my puppet was on top in the roof. And I just went for it, and all of a sudden it just started to click, and Eddie was just on his game, and he was funny as hell, and I was just flying, and Alan was back at me, he was throwing lines at me, and Betty Thomas is we're all like just stacked up in facing Eddie, and Eddie's facing us, and we're just driving 40 miles an hour through the streets, and it was like, and that was my entry to the movie, and I just was ready, and I had a great little puppet, and I just was riffing, and I was saying things that I didn't even think of, and then the dailies were crazy, and all of a sudden it was like, we were back, and the DP came up to me, and or was it the first AD? He said, you saved the puppets' asses here. You really we were just going to say we're going to do all this in post, but all of a sudden we were reignited, and it was just this moment, this unsung moment, which I'm bragging about, only because that, oh my God, that was really important. But it was because we were ready to play, and we just said, screw it. I know there's so many PC things that are not right, and Eddie's angry, and I don't, but I'm bringing it, and I prodded him, and he got mad and got funnier, and then there's a bonfire. That's making a bonfire with your energies. I love that more than anything. I want to dance by the fire with everybody. I don't care who has a stick and wants to throw it in there, who has the best idea. That's also what I've learned throughout puppeteering. The best idea is the one. That's what Jim brought to the world. I don't care where it comes from, he said. If you have an idea, speak up, and if that's a good idea, we're going to use it. You could be a grip, you could be the caterer, I don't care. Say something. If you're watching and you're engaged in it, speak up. Yeah. And it's not so much today because everybody, there's so many cooks in the kitchen. Don't speak up because you'll step on a toe, or we can't do that. I don't understand that. I think that what we do has to be that, and has to be that so democratic or socialist. It's because funny's funny and truth is truth, and it doesn't matter where it comes from. Mm-hmm. And that's what's more important about if you're getting into performing. If there's a better idea, don't worry about that's not yours. Don't worry about it so much. In fact, how much fun is it to be freed to an idea that's not yours, and it is funnier, and it's going to work, and everybody knows it, and how great that is to make everybody engaged, because then everybody is invested. And when everybody's invested, anything can happen. Usually it's great things.
Yeah. What are some things that you always bring with you to a set to make your job easier?
Well, I've learned to bring a kit, bring stuff that, knee pads.
Knee pads, yeah.
Now that we work more in the real world in puppets, it's such a luxury to have a raised set. It's so expensive, and only maybe the biggest productions have them, and even then, sometimes they don't. When you have to fly in to do something, when you're called to set, especially a new puppeteer, you don't know what you're going to be doing. Usually it's uncomfortable. Usually either you're right out of sight of shot, or you have to reach in, and then you have to fold your body, no matter who you are, into something small and insignificant and hide. So when you're twisting and turning, knee pads. Number 2, and this is something for me if you're going to puppeteer for a long time, back brace. Something where you can get your core, tightened. So when you have to support your body in an uncomfortable position for very long periods of time, which is normal.
Yeah.
Because they said to me, and Tony taught us this as well, if it doesn't hurt, you're not doing it right.
Right.
And it's almost a cliche through puppets.
We've heard that on this podcast before.
Exactly. So, people just don't understand that. What do you mean I'm going to be uncomfortable? I know I'm going to make sure I get everything I need. You're not going to get anything you need. You'll be lucky to get a monitor that you can see. And then when you do, you must know how to get yourself positioned. Having a cushion for your butt is also a good thing to have because they don't have those things too. Soft bits are so important. Black glove. Sometimes the shops usually do, but if they don't, great. And then your head, you got to get your head out of the shot because it's the hardest thing to learn because, you're bending your throat and then that means you're making it harder for you to do the funny voice that you have or whatever it is. So, your head may show, whatever your hair. Get a black cap, get something, at least a baseball cap you could turn around and hide yourself and understand that, Work crooked, extend your arms more and practice on camera as much as you can. It's so crucial to see yourself and see where your head is and see how your physicality is and how much you can stretch and how much you can't. So know yourself. But bringing those things is crucial. And then if you work a lot, big shoes with extensions because you get a tall puppeteer or a situation where you are either assisting or you have to match others. Especially if they have a race set and there's tall actors, if you don't fit the character, they'll get somebody else. Physically, you just may not get cast like an actor. You're just not the right type because you're the wrong size. But if you have big shoes, you can work with anybody. Mm-hmm. So, you can get those made. You can get a good pair of shoes and then just get extensions. So if you have all those tools, you have everything you need to fit into whatever you need to do, be it a lead or be it an assistant.
Yeah, you don't want to be there and be like, man, if I have knee pads, this would be great. And
right.
It's like, no, you brought knee pads. Even if you don't use them, just throw them in your bag.
That's very impressive to people who've been in the puppet world, too, that you have all of the tools and you're new.
Yeah.
So if you can figure all that out, they go, well, you must have done this before. You can say yes and lie, and you can live the lie, and you can live to fight another day.
Yeah. Plus, if you bring your own knee pads and perhaps the shop has knee pads there, but your knee pads fit. You're not like trying on bigger knee pads that don't work.
Yeah, or whatever.
Or whatever it is.
Usually you have to do it super fast, and if you don't have them, then you're stuck. And then, you know what, it just wears and tears. And you basically can wear yourself out before you get to your prime. You can really know your craft, but you can't bend down anymore because you've been on your knees way too much. I spent Looney Tunes Back in Action on my knees the entire show, in the desert, in Vegas, in the city. In the Muppet movie, man, we were just in the city. So the guys were flat on their back doing the characters. That's hard for energy transference and to give your best performance.
Yeah.
But there was no choice. We had to hide. We were there. We were only there for a matter of hours. Make it work, guys.
Yeah.
Make it work. Hide behind the tiniest of bush. Just get out of the shot and get the shot. We've got to get the shot. So.
Yeah.
You do things you never think you'd do.
Who are some of your favorite puppeteers to watch work?
I almost like... I like watching every puppeteer work, especially when somebody's cooking, But, Dave Goelz, Steve Whitmire, Kevin Clash, Bill Beretta, of course Frank and Jerry and Brian when he's just, going crazy. I love watching, gosh, I mean, everybody has a certain magic. Everybody has something amazing to bring. And when somebody is just on, you're part of the room. You just want to be around it. Everybody's had moments. And I've been involved with moments where I realize that everybody's looking. Everything stops. When a puppet comes to life, space and time, everybody becomes children. Everybody, the child in you is engaged. Because I go to work with the Muppets, and then I go to a business. They do a lot of things. I was at BuzzFeed, and we brought the Muppets there, and people came up and said, "This is the greatest day of my life," and I went, "Really?" I said, because I had an okay day, and craft food service was delicious, but we could have done better work. But they go, you don't understand. All my life, I watched this or did that, and these characters meant to me. Gonzo, the weirdo thing. When I, so it was. I think yesterday somebody said that when he was holding the balloons and he was like, I'm a weirdo, and he was flying away in the Muppet movie. That moment set people off on pathways for their whole lives. And when they meet those characters, it's so profound. It's like seeing the Pope for some people religiously. I mean, seeing Kermit and those moments. Kevin once took my daughter. He didn't take my daughter because that's illegal, and I'm not actually accusing him of. Yeah, no, she's fine. She's at home now. She's an adult child. No, she's an adult, and she's at home. Anyway, I'm not holding her there. Boy, this is going.
What's happened?
Yeah. Oh my God. This is where you need a reset.
Daughter.
Poor daughter. But Kevin, he took her and started doing a nursery rhyme to her because he was missing his daughter. We were working at Dinosaurs so much. We were like in a submarine. But he sang to her in Elmo's voice, and she was very fussy, and she was and then it was so beautiful, that moment where, and we wasn't even in the puppet, but it was the magic of the characters and the truth and the beauty of it, and my son loved Big Bird, and he got to go to Sesame Street and meet him and stuff, and there's just moments where you just, God, the power of puppets and the power of the performer and the heart and it's so generous, Mm-hmm. When you're in a puppet, you just feel like you're larger than yourself, and when you're in a character that people love, you could be your best self. That's a really strange thing. You could, I think that's why actors, to be Gandhi, to play that character, to play characters where you're enlarging the things that you hope that you could be, and then you can extend yourself in ways that you didn't even know existed. Just that personal growth is such a gift, and I've been allowed to do that. Arc in a character in a series, where you can grow. I went through puberty, as a young teenage girl, me and Misha. With Charlene,
right?
We went from soup to nuts. We did it all,
yeah.
And it informed me like crazy about everything, And I had a daughter. It was great to go through that, and it was you just get to grow as a person, and puppets can enhance that really quickly, and so it's addicting. It's really addicting to try to do what's next. Who can I be next?
Yeah.
You can play characters you never dreamed possible. I played Mrs. Fingal. This piano teacher, Mrs. Fingal, big bouffant, And it was just like, I knew this lady, relatives and maybe the Fingal inside me. But I got to do and play these all sorts of you're so fluid, especially with puppets.
Yeah.
And of course, they're the puppets. I mean, Miss Piggy. I mean, look at Eric and Frank, just so strong-willed men, and then the side of them is so incredible,
Yeah.
And it's so not PC. You can't do that anymore. It's amazing that they still do that, but why not? That the truth of what they did, with those characters, with Miss Piggy and stuff, is beyond. It. Thank God, and why change it? Why mess with that?
Yeah,
it's just. And that's okay. I don't know. There's things that are okay with puppets that should be okay elsewhere, I think, or maybe should be illegal. I'm not really sure.
Do you have this is usually I ask at the very end. Like, do you have social media? Are people where you find you online, or I can just point to your IMDb page too?
Yeah, I'm there, and I've got some videos, of some of my puppet work. I'm not as on that as I should be as far as the business of it. The stuff that I've done is out there, but I'm not. It's not about me pushing my brand anymore. It's more about finding groups of people that get me. I would say that to everybody. Find people who get you and try to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to force yourself into places where it's so hard to get into. Flow, and Bill Beretta taught me this too, and we both talked about it. I said, Bill, the heights and the things you're doing, it's like, he goes, I flow into things. I don't planned to go someplace. It just seems like, okay, well, here it is, and I have something, I have an answer, because he goes into his own life. He reaches into his bag of tricks, which is endless. He's the greatest listener of all time. So when he sees something, he can use it later on. If you have crazy thing, like I make food sounds when I eat, and he goes, and he can imitate me to a T, and it's like, damn it, that's so good. And I hate the fact that you are imitating me perfectly, but it's also that human condition, So hanging with people that get your point of view and your sense of humor, it's the joy of creation. It's not what you make. It's not the end result. When you're performing and creating, it's just that moment, and those moments is what you're going to remember when you're dead. You're dead when you're done. Hopefully you're not dead, but that's what people remember of you, and then will want to have you back. Is that you pool in on that energy. You enjoy other people's moments. You enjoy the fact that we didn't think we'd get there. And when we played Mr. Tinkles, it took 5 people and the animatronics and all the things, but that character had a life of its own. I would watch myself on the screen do things that I didn't think I was even saying. There would be sound coming out before I was thinking. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, that's what it lifts off and becomes its own thing. I've seen the great people do it. I've seen Dave and Frank and Steve. Their characters, it's almost like they're doing something else, and still the character's full on alive, and it has nothing to do with them or with the people doing it. It's something else. Yeah. And that's what I live for, is those moments. Either it's a great meal or you're with friends and you go, right now, there's nothing more we can do on this earth to enjoy ourselves. We are the richest, most luckiest people in the world. And my friend Misha said to me, you know what? We need to celebrate when there's nothing to celebrate. Because if you wait before, if you deserve and you've worked so hard, you're going to work hard anyway. And you may not get to the heights you think you will get, but the heights of being alive are right there in front of you. And usually with the people you love, the friends that you have, the ones that say, I love you for who you are. I love you for your mistakes. I love when you're happy, and when you're happy, I'm happy. And that's the best creative moments of all. They can happen with your family, it can happen with your friends, it can happen anywhere. It can happen with Harvey. When you're feeling comfortable and alive, you go, what? This has been a great day. A great day doesn't mean you got the biggest part of your life. It could just be that you just made somebody laugh in the audition room, or just something happened where you're going to use it later on. It was something you saw, and then you shared, and somebody said, you're right. Yeah. That is funny. Thank you for that. I needed to hear that. Just that one moment can make somebody else's life bearable, that bridge that they needed. And that's what we need to do. And you can have a very full life, and it doesn't matter being a star or being anything more than a helper and somebody who wants to pass on something that is joyous, especially in this world, rather than the fake news and the meanness. Enough of that, and that's why I hope the Muppets, do their variety, and I hope that, if you're a cornball and that's who you are, be the best cornball. Just go for it. Don't have to be edgy, you know? Nobody has to be edgy in this world. The world is edgy enough. We're all going to get cut and bruised, and you can bleed out with, trying to be what you think others think is cool, or what you think that's what'll break me through. You already broke through. If you're trying to be and perform, then you want to say something from you. You may think it's a small platform and it's not important, but it could be very important to one person. Right. That's it.
Yeah. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for coming by Under the Puppet today. It was honored having you on the show.
Oh, please, Honor. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Many thanks to Bruce Lanoil for being on this episode. For a link to Bruce's IMDb page, visit the show notes for this episode number 10, over at underthepuppet.com. Finally, on previous episodes of the show, we've talked about learning how to build puppets, and the thought of making a sort of Henson-style puppet may be very intimidating. The good news is that there are many different styles of puppets that you can build, and in doing so, your creative ideas for characters and shows will begin to grow. There are 2 great books on building simple but really fun puppets that I can recommend, and both are by puppeteer John Kennedy. The first is called Puppet Mania, and the other is called Puppet Planet. Both are currently available on Amazon.com at the time of this recording, and they are filled with tons of ideas for different styles of puppets to build, from things you find around the house and some simple supplies that you get from your local craft store. John gives clear step-by-step directions on how to build each puppet, while still leaving you lots of room for your own creative ideas. These books are kind of geared towards kids, but the puppet recipes inside will inspire you to start building your own characters as well. Search for Puppet Mania and Puppet Planet at Amazon.com, or you can visit the show notes for this episode, once again, that's episode number 10, at underthepuppet.com for direct links. Either way, I think both of these books are worth picking up for any puppeteer. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Under the Puppet. I welcome your feedback via email at hello@SaturdayMorningMedia.com or via Twitter, where the show is at username Under the Puppet. You can also like us on Facebook by visiting the show's page by searching Under the Puppet. I want to hear your suggestions for questions I should be asking and for future guests. Also, the goal of this show is to talk to puppeteers making it happen in all sorts of styles of puppetry. So if you know an amazing Bunraku or shadow puppet artist, please reach out. Let me know who I should be talking to. Thank you so much for listening. Talk to you next time right here on Under the Puppet. Under the Puppet is a production of Saturday Morning Media and is made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who've gone to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a monthly donation for as little as $1 a month. Huge thanks to Shay Stewart, Merle Lafferty, Jeff Peterson, Dale Gadania, Stephen Staver, Jackie Klimo, Melissa Crawford, Dave Slusher of the Evil Genius Chronicles, Mike Coughlin, Dorothy Pachoco, John D., Kathy Crawford, Brian Greer, Kerry Whitney, Chuck Tomasi from the Technorama Podcast, Chris Foster, Stephen Ing, Clinton of ComedyForecast.com, Vicky DeVries, Mike Wobschall, Twitter user Butts and Gear, a.k.a. Wildcat, Eve Cunning, Mike Hamilton, Gaston Moreno, Reed Loveland, Ivan Asquith, Vanessa Whitney, Janine Lee, Peggy Etra, Kristen Hogan of Squid Friends, David Akers, Zoe Palladino, Ellen Multari, Christopher Harris, Rachel Jackson of Vox Fabuli Puppets, Carolyn Weisner, John Petty, Rachel Hansen, Darcy Prevost, Fernando Torres, Ron McAdams, Perlicue Magic, Jason Domer, Trent Hammond, and Roman and Emmett. If you'd like to support this show and the other fun content from Saturday Morning Media, become a patron. Head on over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up your monthly donation today. You can also tell a friend about the show or leave the show a review in the iTunes Apple Podcast directory. And while you're over there in the iTunes Apple Podcast directory, click that subscribe button. That way you'll get new episodes the moment they are released. Thank you so much for listening. Under the Puppet is copyright 2017 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Pachoco executive producer, all rights reserved. www.SaturdayMorningMedia.com. You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.